Hello and welcome to the interview hosted by the Big Box Media Company. I'm Joan Fontes, the head of content at Scribe Minds and Media. And today I'm honored to be joined by Mr. Dhimant Negandhi, who's the vice president at Swiggy. Allow me to briefly introduce today's guest. Dhimant Negandhi is a vice president at Swiggy, where he leads key parts of the retail business. With over a decade of experience across Swiggy and Flipkart, he has helped scale some of India's most loved consumer categories. His journey has been shaped by solving real world problems, whether building Flipkart's Quick during the early days of quick commerce or driving growth and innovation at Swiggy. Dimant brings a sharp lens on what truly drives consumer delight in digital commerce. Good morning, Mr. Dimant. Thank you for joining the interview hosted by the Big Box Media Company.
Hey, thank you so much, Johan, for having me. Really appreciate the interview.
This dialogue is intended to highlight the global best practices and their application in the retail and e commerce landscape. As we delve into this conversation, we invite you to share your insights on a few key discussion pointers that we have made.
So,
Yeah. I would like to start by talking about how does category management differ between online and brick and mortar retail?
so I think, Johan, that's a great question. I mean, we all heard about how e-commerce or online commerce is very agile, right? There is a very strong category management lens to the agility that is driven by online commerce. And let me speak about it, right? So, category management in online typically is very real-time data focused, right? So, when you come to office every day morning as a category manager, the first thing that you do is you look at data that is available to you, right?
Okay.
And some of the data that is available to you is basically search behavior that is very consumer focused. We're not talking about looking at sales data, right? We're talking about data which helps you make decisions as a category manager. A classic example would be if you are running a grocery category and you see that a lot of people are asking for fox nuts, but your selection is extremely poor, you have the ability to, play around with the selection very, very fast, right? The second thing that you do is you look at something like a conversion analytics every day morning for, let's say, 15 minutes, where you see that, okay, I may have the right product, but the price may not be right. And you work on a very, very strong dynamic pricing philosophy, which means that I have the ability to try a few things and see whether it works better in conversion for the customer, right? That's the second thing. The third and the most important thing is sometimes these are hypotheses by category managers, and most of these new online companies are extremely open to let their category teams experiment, right? Now, because you're part of an online platform, they would let your category management teams be more agile by trying dynamic A/B pricing. Now, what happens is a set of customer A is able to see price A, and a set of customer B is able to see price B. And then you see the data again the next day. Whatever works better, you stick to that. So this is where the agility comes from, right? The last part of a category management is that you are not bounded by how many products you can sell. Because you are working at a back-end warehouse, you don't have expensive real estate to worry about as a category manager. So you want to expand your selection as much as possible, right? Now look at traditional e-commerce, traditional retail, brick and mortar, right? I mean, they're restricted. The category manager is restricted by how much space he has in the store. He has to make extremely tough decisions. These decisions are not only backed by data, but they're actually backed by which brand is paying me more to be on the shelf, right? So I feel that an online e-commerce category manager is far more empowered to take database decisions, agile decisions, and dynamic decisions. I think this is the major difference between how a category management team differs in both the businesses.
So you spoke about data, right? So is there a way that you collect this data and information and then implement it? Like the behind collecting this? Can you just walk us through that?
Sure, sure. The most important data point that a category management looks at is the conversion funnel, Joan, right? So what happens is when you shop on a platform, your data is captured. The shopping behavior data is captured for every transaction, which means that not, let's take a perfect example of a washing machine. Joanne wants to buy a washing machine. She lands on a page and she sees the selection that is available and she just drops off. Now, this data tells me that Joanne did not find the right washing machine, and hence I need to add more brands to my arsenal. However, if you did add a particular washing machine to a cart, but you dropped off at the last minute, this tells me that Joanne was uncomfortable with the price. And that gives me an opportunity to play around with the price, Joanne. Right. So, which means that this kind of data is available for every category manager. But again, the most common mistake that I've seen a lot of category management teams make is they focus a lot on sales data, right? Why is the product not selling, right? So my recommendation has always been to my teams that focus on the input conversion data that gives you most of the answers that a category manager would need.
I appreciate you sharing your insight. It adds a lot of depth to our conversation. That would bring me to my next question. How do you
Sure.
determine products belong in a specific category?
Actually, that's a very interesting question because traditionally, I think this business has evolved a lot in the last 10, 15 years, Joanne, right? So when you started, the way a Flipkart or Amazon would think is, great, this is a book. Let's put it under the books category, right? This is a beauty product. Let's put it under the beauty category, right? Now, what customers have told us in the last few years is that they don't shop by category, right? They shop by occasions, right? And the most powerful arsenal that a category manager has is probably thinking occasions more than categories. I'll give you a perfect two examples that will clarify this, right? A first example is that in a quick commerce grocery basket today, we have seen very common trend that people add banana and they add breads, right? This doesn't tell me that both belong to a similar category, but this tells me that people are shopping for the breakfast section, right? And the more you see this breakfast thing adding up, like for example, eggs, banana, bread, they may all belong to different categories, but the occasion remains the same, right? So a category manager then identifies which occasions are the one why people are coming to shop on his platform and be able to expand that. So a classic example would be you see a lot of late night binging, food binging on seeing in teenagers, right? And they would
Yes,
typically order a particular kind of a food. So even though a pizza, a burger are different categories, but they all belong into the late night snacking category, right? So
correct.
that's how a category manager thinks. Similar example could be fitness. Now in a fitness you have sports equipment, but you also have whey protein. Now these are very different categories, the traditional defined categories, but the occasion is fitness. And if fitness is picking up, my job would be to see whether I can get more products added, get more brands, get more choice for the customer, make it more competitive for the customer. And once I know my occasion, I'm able to throw the right push notifications. Imagine, Joanne, you getting a push notification on your phone saying, okay, heading towards the gym, buy your whey protein. This is far more relevant versus saying, do you want to shop whey protein at 9999? I mean, that doesn't make the cut anymore, right? So this is one of the things that I feel is the most right way of thinking about categories now versus trying to say, does this product belong to this category? The more we evolve, the more it is going to, make it better for the online commerce. One last example, Joan, which I can think of, and this was one of during the fashion stint at Flipkart. We observed that while the formal category wasn't doing that well, because people have started wearing casuals, but we saw that women office going clothes was picking up as a trend, right? And largely because as more women go to office, the pipeline is improving. We started thinking about what does that lady need when she goes to office versus trying to think what kind of clothes can I provide to her, right? And then build a category around that. So occasions and trends are two things, Joanne, which are extremely important to decide which products fall into which category and thinking about it in a different way.
Right. Another question that I have on the same thing is, for example, you go to a supermarket or a hypermarket, you have your cereal section, right? You have all the cereals in one row. Then you have your dry foods which complement that which people add to their cereals. So it could also be like convenience and what they add to make a dish, correct?
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I mean, that's exactly what I was trying to say. If you go to Swiggy today, or if you go to a Blinkit today, or if you even look at any traditional a traditional player versus an e-commerce player, the way they do it is very different, right? They would give you recipes of making a particular dish and try to put everything into one basket together. Imagine uh, what change AI can bring here, right? Imagine you just saying that, I want to basically shop for breakfast. And imagine all the product getting added to your basket at one go just by one word or a one prompt, right? So absolutely bang on. In traditional retail, you will find this challenging. They are catching up, by the way, right? For example, you would see very smart visual merchandising folks in some of these traditional retail companies, brick and mortar, who have already started thinking about it. When you walk into a shelf, you may see the cereals and then you may immediately see the dry fruits, right? So it's just that online commerce is far more efficient in doing this because they can play around this faster.
And does packaging also play a big role when it comes to shelving? Like
It
the
does.
catching packages that are placed right in front first, and then you have your. Does that also play a main role in this?
See, like I said, in traditional retail, what happens is a lot is defined by, what brands you keep as a retailer, right? And you want to ensure that the brands that have paid the most, give you the most margin, are typically on the shelf, right? However, if you look at online retail, what happens is there is a, uh personalization layer to it, which means that if you buy a particular cereal often, the moment you open your homepage, there will be a recommendation. See, because the end of the day, the online platform wants you to just check out faster, right?
Exactly.
So if I can show you whatever you buy, often, the chances of you buying something and going are faster. So that's how platforms behave.
Got it. Got it. So building on what you have just mentioned, how often do you review or restructure categories, and what typically drives those changes?
Correct. I think there are three things that drive changes in how we review. So we do reviews quarterly on category management. I mean, we obviously have weekly reviews, but weekly reviews are more driven towards what happened yesterday, what happened last week, right? We may not necessarily change our selection strategy or the assortment strategy every week, right? We look at our assortment very carefully every quarter and try to make changes based on three major buckets. One bucket is seasonality, right? So a classic example would be the TV category, right? So if there is an IPL coming through, there is
Mm,
going to be a lot of focus on people buying televisions, right? So seasonality is one thing. Similarly, in if it's a grocery category, berries would start appearing in your cart, let's say, or your choice or searches at the in winter. Right. So how do you play around with your assortment and be early in finding this? The second would be trends, right? Catching up on trends. And a classic example again would be 5 years back, there was a big trend of everybody wanting to eat fox nuts or makhana as a health thing, right? So suddenly you would see everywhere there were the selection appearing, but now it has died down. Now you see a lot of people talking about protein as a keyword, right? So can you catch up on it faster? Can you work with your suppliers to have protein yogurt faster in your selection? Right. So if you don't do this every quarter, Joanne, you're going to left behind some of the other smarter category managers who would catch this trend faster than you. So I would say if you're able to do it monthly, great. Otherwise, quarterly is like almost a given. And the last bucket is competitive bucket, right? So a classic example would be today everybody is focusing on quick commerce as a vertical for speed. But tomorrow there could be a new competitor who focuses on quick commerce specifically for gourmet, right?
mm,
And the moment that happens, a category manager at a normal quick commerce company is going to think, okay, gourmet is now going to be a focus because a competitor is fighting really hard, investing a lot of money on promoting it. I also need to focus on creating a gourmet selection, right? So, in your quarterly reviews, this is how you would start thinking as a category manager: trends, competitors, and seasonality, and
So,
catch them
ba-
early.
so basically, you have to come up with new ways to keep up with the market. To,
Correct.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Demant, for giving us your time and joining us on this interview call. We look forward to hearing more from you at the Big Box India event on August 21st, held in Bangalore. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me and looking forward to speak at the event. Thank you.
Thank you.